take some extra time. I am so sorry.
Well, you know,
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, thank you. I know that in the Senate, freshman senators are supposed to be seen and not heard, but I'm happy to be heard today. Thank you.
You've got it.
I want to begin by thanking you, Madam Chairman, for your courage over many years, your consistent advocacy for this assault weapon ban. You have been so stalwart and strong. And the simple, blunt fact is that this issue was thought to be politically untouchable 2 months ago. We would not be here today without the horrific Newtown tragedy. So I want to begin by asking my fellow citizens of Connecticut, most particularly the members of the Newtown community, Sandy Hook Promise, the Newtown Action Alliance, as well as the families who had victims, to please stand so that we can thank you publicly for your courage and your strength in this extraordinary historic moment. Thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause.
My colleague Chris Murphy was here earlier. He had another hearing, so he had to leave, but he's been a very active member of this team. You know, there was extraordinary evil in Newtown on December 14th of last year, but there was also extraordinary heroism. And part of it was, in fact, the law enforcement officers who went to the school, charged into the building, and thereby prevented even more deaths because the shooter turned the gun on himself when he knew that police were on the scene. So I want to begin by thanking our law enforcement officers who are on the front lines every day. We have two of our most distinguished in the country. Thank you for being here, U.S. Attorney Walsh and Chief Flynn, and for your eloquent and powerful testimony today. And it was also the courage and strength of the Newtown community that's rallied together and taken an active advocacy position in favor of these kinds of measures. And the statisticians and the PhDs and the lawyers may debate the numbers, but the second simple, blunt fact is that some or all of those 20 beautiful children and 6th grade educators would be alive today if assault weapons had been banned, along with high-capacity magazines. And some of the victims in Tucson would be alive today, including 9-year-old Christina Taylor, as Captain Mark Kelly testified so powerfully just a short time ago in the place where you're sitting now. The fact is that we need a comprehensive strategy. Nobody here is saying that an assault weapon ban or prohibition on high-capacity magazines will end gun violence, but we're choosing to light a candle rather than curse the darkness. And the fact is, Chief Flynn, I would agree with you totally that what we see in our nation is mass murder committed as a result of gun violence. I differ only to say that it is not slow motion. In fact, it's escalating. It's rapid fire mass murder. 1,900 people have been killed since Newtown as a result of gun violence. And so I want to begin by asking you, Chief Flynn, and I think you've alluded to it, what is it that leads you to feel the men and women on your force are outgunned by these assault weapons?
For the first 20 years of my police career, I carried a 6-shooter, and that was plenty. That was a standard weapon for American law enforcement for over 100 years. And in the last 20 years, we've been in an arms race. I only the year before last had to start arming my officers with assault weapons in the cruisers to start to protect themselves. That's not where we were pre-Brady.
And in fact, their body armor won't protect them against assault weapons, will it, at close range?
No, we have to constantly upgrade the body armor and offer them the opportunity to wear metal plates. You know, our challenge is this. If I might take one moment, I had the opportunity on September 11th, 2001, I was the police chief in Arlington, Virginia. That's where the Pentagon was. And what I learned that day, that if this country takes 3,000 innocent victims, it takes major steps to alter itself. And nobody's boarded an airplane the same way since. That weapon of mass murder is no longer used in this country because we've taken steps to keep it out of the hands of those who would kill us. Now, I've wondered frequently in the last decade how many people have to get murdered in a mass murder for it to be enough. Now, I've been wrong time after time after time. But I'm a grandpa. I've got little kids at home. Is 20 babies enough to say these implements should not be so easily distributed? That's what we're asking for. When was that gun bought?
I know that the chairwoman will perhaps indulge me one more question.
I will.
I'm a law enforcement guy too. I was a state law enforcement person and had your job, United States Attorney Walsh, in Connecticut some years ago. And I want to say nobody in law enforcement ever thinks we're doing enough. Nobody ever says, well, we can go home and stop trying to do better. So as much as we may agree with you that the United States Department of Justice and local and state police forces are trying to enforce these laws as aggressively as possible, I think you need more resources and you need criminal background checks so that you can know, as Senators Graham and Senator Cruz said, how to keep these weapons, all weapons, out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. Criminals, domestic abusers, the severely mentally ill. And would you agree that the criminal background check expansion to the private sales, as well as possibly ammunition sales, are a way to enforce the existing laws? They're on the books right now that can be enforced better so that you know before those weapons are purchased, along with trafficking prohibitions, that we can keep those guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them.
The majority of my illegal firearms are bought legally, not stolen. They're either bought through straw purchases or they're bought outside of the regular firearms, licensed firearms dealers. 6 of my officers were shot with guns that were legally bought from the same firearms dealer. That's intolerable. So obviously the purpose of background checks is to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, not to create, millions of additional prosecutions. The point is those checks work. And if we can extend them to the gun shows, we can keep guns out of the hands of criminals as well as the criminally insane.
And perhaps we can stop them from buying ammunition after they have those guns. Would you agree?
Certainly.
Thank you. Would you agree, United States Attorney Walsh?
Absolutely, Senator. I think those are critical steps that will help us keep the American people safer. In addition, I'd note that after Columbine, the state of Colorado tightened up its own background check to close the so-called gun show loophole, and also to invigorate the extent to which records on mental illness came into the system, and that's proved to be effective. Of course, it can't stop everything, as we saw last July in Aurora.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.